Greetings, welcome to the Transforming Assessment webinar series for the 1st of June. Today's session is a joint effort with the Assessment in Higher Education Network based in the UK, and today's session is Student Perspectives on Audio Feedback. We'll be having two speakers today, and to introduce those two speakers we have Fabio, so please take it away, Fabio.
Excellent, good morning and good evening everybody. My name is Fabio Arico and I'm here representing the Assessment in Higher Education Network. We are very thankful to Mathew for hosting us and for this very productive partnership that we established. We share some of these sessions with the Transforming Assessment, and we are very grateful for that. So let me tell you a little bit about us before we start. As I mentioned, I'm one of the members of the Assessment in Higher Education Conference Committee, and in the room we also have Fiona Mellings from the University of York, who's going to monitor the chat and facilitate the discussion. So the Assessment in Higher Education Network is an independent network. As Mathew mentioned, we are based in the UK, precisely at the University of Cumbria. However, our committee and our executives form of international members representing several institutions across the world, and we are particularly interested in promoting research, evaluation, practice on assessment and feedback. And you can check our website for event like the one that we are promoting right now. What we are very excited about this year is that we are resuming our face-to-face conference in Manchester, England. This is going to take place between the 22nd and the 24th of June, and you can find the details, program, and you're of course still on time for registering if you are interested. And we look forward to actually resume these events in person about time. But let's move to our presentation for today. We got two interesting presentations about audio feedback. The first presenter is going to be Gemma Van Vuuren-Cassar from Canterbury Christ Church University in the UK, and she's going to be followed by Ying, also known as Zhan from the Education University of Hong Kong. Each presentation is just going to take place back to back, perhaps with 1 or 2 minutes for burning questions, but we are going to have plenty of time for a discussion in the second half of the session. And please post your comments in the chat. Presenters might actually respond themselves, but we are also going to monitor and facilitate the discussion. So without further ado, I'm just going to give the floor to Gemma for her presentation.
Hello, good morning, everyone, and thanks to Mathew and Fabio for inviting us over and giving us the opportunity to come along to our network presentation. I am Gemma Van Vuuren-Cassar, and I am the Interim Faculty Director of Learning and Teaching at one of the faculties, the Faculty of Science, Engineering, Social and Applied Sciences at our university. And Chris Harvey is School Director of Learning and Teaching in my faculty. And today I am presenting our work on undergraduate students' perspective of summative and audio feedback. I thought that it will be worthwhile telling you something very brief at our university. We have about 15,000 students, and we have quite a few rapid expansion, especially of students in partnership institutions. We have 3 faculties, and my faculty is the Faculty of Science, Engineering and Social Sciences. And we have about 8,000 students in my faculty, so we're one of the larger faculties. The next thing I wanted to briefly show you, we're in the southeast of England, close to London, and we have campuses on different locations in this lovely Garden of England part of the country. Right, the next thing I want to go about, of course, is why we are here today. Why audio feedback? So as we all know, when COVID came, unfortunately, most universities had to close the doors and no one was kind of coming on campus. And we all started meeting on Teams and on Blackboard Collaborate, so on and so forth. And during one of these staff school meetings, it was, decided that maybe we need to give a voice comment to our students on assessments, because we are losing the communication that usually happens in the face-to-face sessions during the seminars, lectures, workshops, so on and so forth. So as a point in time, it was decided that let's look into it, see what the literature says, and let's do something about it. So it was decided to use audio feedback and to trial it across one academic schools from the 4 that we have in our faculty for a whole academic year. And what we did in our staff meetings, we did say that audio feedback is going to replace the general text comments that we usually write in Turnitin and use the integrated voice comment functionality, which is in Turnitin, which allows 3 minutes of comments. So the idea that we're going to use voice comments instead of text comments and extensive markups in text was something that was not welcomed by all staff who are used to doing that particular process. And also they believe that students needed to have especially the additional comments in the text. However, at that time, all members of staff had to work from home, and everyone had a different work environment. Some had, other members of their families or setup of where they live that potentially did not even facilitate the recording. So there are quite a few issues. And as a follow-up, we thought we need to see how we can support staff and eventually students. So it was also thought that using audio feedback could potentially save time and make more explicit comments available to students. There are also some comments by staff that said, well, if you look at a transcript of 3 minutes of talking, it might be the same or even more than what we usually write in text. We did not investigate that, although that could be interesting as a follow-up of what we have done so far, but that's something that was heard in the discussion. So how did we support staff to use audio feedback? And this is in a way where the idea of the case study was born, because we really wanted to get this right for everyone. So in addition to the usual, keep using the grades and the assessment rubrics for the students, we decided to provide a guidance template of text that could be used for voice comments. So it was like something that people could use and then change and personalize for students, link it to the content of the assignment, so on and so forth. So there was staff training and support for voice recording, and this was for different course teams, for individuals. Were very proactive and supportive with that, and people worked with each other and worked really well. And there was also a request for potential text that could be used in the Turnitin guidance for staff and students, how to instruct students to access recordings. And what we did, we stayed in touch with staff in different ways. So people could contact the team that was coordinating this via MS Teams, via emails, set up separate meetings, and it was a very collaborative and learning community type of venture. And we also shared the recordings of key staff sessions and all the templates in a space that was available for all on MS Teams. So that sets us up to move on. However, where did our key research-informed decision come from? For the purpose of today, I'm just sharing two key areas we looked at. Firstly, there's quite a bit of literature on audio versus written feedback, although we know very well that the two can go together. And also looked at views of students. What do they think about, and what do we know so far about their view of audio feedback? So the idea that students like personalized feedback and comments is something that has been documented in different and many studies that we have so far, and today I'm quoting Carruthers. We also know that written feedback sometimes goes unread and or uncollected, although things have improved over the years. So where there was written feedback, there was a lot of issues with students saying that it was not able even to decipher what people are writing. But with the advent of technology, quite a lot is typed in and very legible indeed. And summative type feedback is often regarded as useful to potentially improve student grades in different types of assignments and different types of assessments. And we know that sometimes that is not the case. So the impact has been measured, and we find that sometimes it doesn't make a significant difference whether we use audio or written feedback. What do we know about student views? So this is quite interesting. There's still quite strong preference for written feedback by students, and our findings today are going to be quite interesting and a good point for discussion. The other thing that we found from students is that it is highly acceptable, but it is potentially slightly underused. So what did we do? So first and foremost, we did get ethical approval from the faculty's ethics committee to roll out some research with staff and students on audio feedback and how it is undertaken. And I'm going to get started by sharing with you what we did with students. So we put together a JISC survey, and we had 163 responses, and we had different type of questions that asked students what is most important to them as far as audio and summative feedback is concerned, what are their views about accessibility and then the quality of audio feedback, their perspectives, of course, on audio and written feedback, and their views on formative and summative assessment, whether they like or prefer or value focused and general feedback, and whether they tend to prefer feedback that focuses on their strengths or their shortcomings and areas for improvement. So our students come from three main subject areas: psychology, science, and sports. And we have a relatively balanced number of students coming from different levels, level 4, level 5, level 6, which equates to year 1, year 2, and year 3 of an undergraduate course in a university. So when students answered the question, what is important for you? as far as feedback is concerned. The fact that it is easy to access was important for everybody. So when we look at the different levels, we notice that it's only, you know, a real odd person that said that it is not important. When students were asked whether personalized feedback is important to them, again, the majority of the students replied that it is very important to them. And when asked whether timely feedback is important to them, and we look at their subject, again, everyone is saying that it is very important. I have to say that when we presented this question, we presented it as a little important, important, and not important. So it wasn't exactly a Likert scale. And for the purpose of analysis, it turned out to be better to group all the important and not important. So that's why it looks like quite odd, but in reality, all the levels of importance that were indicated were grouped as one. And we noticed that students strongly value and regard easy access to feedback, personalized feedback, and timely feedback as important. The other things we asked about is what do they expect in terms of the level of feedback? Do they want concise feedback? Is that important to them? And again, when we look at the different levels, this is another yes, very important, and timely feedback and detail of feedback. We have, again, unanimous, probably as expected, feedback from students that this is really important to them. Right, so we had a series of Likert scale items, and we grouped these after they were completed by students, so we did not have subheadings or anything. One group of statements was linked to accessibility, and here we have quite a lot of agreements with regards to student engagement with accessible feedback. So students did listen to the recorded audio feedback. So majority strongly agreed that they did. It was easy to find and to play. I have to say that a little help of instructions of press this button, so on and so forth, was useful for students, because we did anticipate that Turnitin was not exactly that you know, easy to understand exactly what to do to access your feedback, and they could hear and understand what the markers were saying. Slightly on the undecided, or disagree if you like, level, more on the undecided. Did they listen to the feedback several times? Not really. And did the markers sound interested in the way that they were talking about the students' work? Not everyone seemed to be happy. Did they take notes? Not everyone was taking notes. So these are some of the accessibility things that we found. We had some open-ended opportunities for students, open-ended question for students to give us our thoughts. And it was interesting to see that tone does matter. So students say some markers sounded disinterested. Of course, we also had some students that have some disability needs, and again, students with hard of hearing and could not use auto feedback effectively, and the markers of these particular students, even though we had this particular case running, they decided to actually provide written feedback as well. Some students commented it was cutting off, and some said that it was too quiet, hardly audible, etc. There were some technical matters that students made us aware of. You can't skip to a part of record feedback for quick access, or even though it's 3 minutes, they want to go to the section that talks about shortcomings, areas for improvement, etc. And that's not so easy to get to. Not as easy to refer back to, and difficult to take notes. So this is something that students made us aware of when, especially compared to their written feedback. Did students engage with the audio feedback? So again, when we look at the Likert measurement scale, 5 is strongly agree, and we have a lot of 3 points and 2 points. So it's more on the not exactly student agreeing to have done this. Audio recording made clear the weakness of my work. So if it was spoken as opposed to written, students do not feel that it was made very clear. And the aspects of my work that I need to pay attention to, again, some students are not very happy that that was very clear to them. Right, so the recorded audio feedback is not something that the students are going to look at more than they would if it was written. Quality of audio feedback, again, we have quite a few comments which are slightly on the not so much strongly agreeing, more like on the unsure and disagreeing. So, questions. Would you rather have feedback that emphasizes general aspects or focuses on details? So the majority of students, when we look at the courses and the levels, they want focus on details. That's across the board, and it's not statistically significant. Would you rather feedback that emphasizes shortcomings or strengths? And again, the majority of students across the subjects and across the levels, they prefer shortcomings, tell us what the areas that we need to improve on are, and this is again not statistically significant. Would you rather have feedback that is more formative, less summative, or more formative and less summative? And here it's interesting that students are divided. So it's like half want more formative and less summative, and the other half want more formative and less summative. And this is something that we want to investigate further. If we look at the percentages of students that want more feedback prior to submission without a mark and less summative feedback explaining the mark later, again, it's a divided, if you like, territory. Do you want more summative and less formative feedback at submission? Again, it's not very clear cut when students want formative feedback provided. So this is something that we want to investigate further. When we looked at the type of preferred feedback and the courses that students are in, it was interesting to see that psychology students tend to prefer written feedback, and this is statistically significant. It's also important and worthwhile noticing that the majority of psychology students stated that it is my first year at university and I've only received recorded feedback so far. Sorry, I jumped one. When we looked at the perspectives of students and feedback by level, a high amount of level 4 students experienced audio for the first time, and the rest were split with their preferences. And again, this was statistically significant because of the year 1 students. Level 5 and level 6, so second and third year students, prefer written feedback. So that's something that came out. I'm quickly going to go through some of the staff experience with audio feedback. We had a JISC survey, and these were open-ended questions, and they specifically asked on the audio feedback template, time to complete audio feedback, and the technical issues with recording. We also had a staff focus group, so 6 people opted in. And again, it was for people to explain more on similar things that we asked in the open-ended questions. And this was analyzed preliminary using in vivo, looking at the high frequency words and the statements that went with it. So what did we find? So here we have some snaps from the templates that were on the shared drive. Some said that in their teams there was inconsistency in use. Some stuff stuck to it religiously. Others decided, no, I'm going to do my thing and maybe use some of the things that are in there. And the 3 points state what are the positives, negatives, feed forward, or strengths, weaknesses, and areas for improvement. That's something everyone seemed to be agree with and was used. So the key themes that came out from the analysis of the audio feedback template, there were some comments on the structure of it and comments on the feedback that it was supposed to provide. So some stated that this was actually similar that we already did for the written feedback, and it works well with essay type assignments, but not so much with research report and other type of assessments. Some found it good to have a coherent and consistent and standardized approach. Some were very honest and categorically stated, I did not use the template. It's too formal. There was a long introduction to explain to the students, and they wanted to utilize a more personalized approach and more natural for each type of assignment. Some felt that it was not as detailed as the written feedback with the annotations in text, and some decided to modify it. And it was interesting to have staff saying that it was harder to use for low achieving students, and higher level modules, especially dissertations, where more information was useful. So some staff,
Gemma, we got 1 or 2 minutes.
Okay, some said it was quicker to use the audio feedback. Others said that it was longer. The key issues were that some staff really wanted to make notes and to actually give as much feedback as possible. Some had technical issues, and for second marking and moderating, it takes longer because you have to listen to 3 minutes as opposed to read 3 minutes or less of writing. Another 2 key themes came up: technical issues, background noise, external examiner could not download it. Some staff forgot to press the save button and had to re-record 2 or 3 times, or re-record everything if you didn't save. And there wasn't proper training for sessional markers. Professionalism, people wanted freedom to use combination of different types of audio and written feedback. So staff had some positive and negative thoughts in relation to students. Some students even thanked and emailed members of staff. The listening to the audio feedback was engaging. And some students on the negative side felt it was not clear to them to know where their work needed to be improved to get better marks. Some found the information vague, and that the detail was reduced. So those were some of the key issues. So to conclude, students value detailed, timely, and personalized feedback that is concise and that emphasizes areas for improvements, and that formative and summative feedback are valued. There's a slight preference for written feedback, and further investigations on how and when formative feedback will benefit students is recommended for different types of assessments. Staff, of course, value the guidance for consistency and support through training, resources, and workshops, and they strongly want the professional judgment and flexibility to use audio and written feedback to suit the type of assessments that they are using. Thank you.
That's lovely, a lot of interesting data and evidence to reflect about. But we can move to the second presenter for today, who is Jane. Jane, the floor is yours for your presentation.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. So I'm Jane, coming from the Education University of Hong Kong. Today, I'd like to share our recent project on audio feedback with you. Different for Gemma's study, we use the audio feedback on students' project-based learning for formative purpose. So before I introduce the details of our project, I'd like to thank our team. So this is our team. So without everyone's contribution and the fund provided by our university, we wouldn't make it. So let's go back to our project. So we know that project-based learning has been increasingly used in higher education courses. So it's defined as an active student-centered form of instruction, which is characterized by students' autonomy, constructive investigations, goal setting, collaboration, communication, and reflection within the real-world practices. Although project-based learning is believed to bring about deep learning, this may not always occur in practice. So students may fail to maintain their learning momentum throughout the development of the project. So they may exhibit great anxiety if their teachers leave them alone during the project development and do not provide deliberate scaffolding for their learning. So therefore, teacher feedback is crucial for students to achieve optimal project-based learning. So in this project, we highlight the role of teacher audio feedback, which uses available technological tools to enable students to listen and replay. And in the literature, we know the majority of studies have explored the effects of audio feedback on written assignments for summative purposes in a higher education context. However, more research is needed on the effects of audio feedback on other types of learning tasks, such as student project work for formative purposes. In addition, studies have found that audio feedback for learners does not always provide advantages over written feedback. Therefore, it is meaningful to explore the factors that influence the effects of audio feedback on project-based learning. So we generated two specific research questions listed here. Research question 1, does audio feedback enhance students' learning engagement and outcomes in their group projects? If yes, in what aspects? Research question 2, what factors influence the effects of audio feedback on students' project-based learning? So you may wonder why audio feedback works. We know that providing effective feedback in higher education remains a complicated issue. So bottom line point out, the universities and colleges are often criticized for inadequacies in the feedback they provide to students. So these inadequacies include impoverished dialogue during feedback process as a result of mass higher education, redundant practice because of delays in providing feedback, lack of intimacy due to a limited symbolic representation system, collection of feedback from a designated location at a specified time, and also specific feedback as a result of assessing large number of students in a short period of time. The last might be the decoding difficulty caused by academic jargons and illegible handwriting. So in response to these inadequacies in feedback practice, a growing number of studies have investigated the potential values of audio feedback. So audio feedback can be timely, convenient, detailed, and rich for students due to its technological affordances. Moreover, the large amount of detail provided by audio feedback enables students to better understand their teachers' comments. In addition to content, audio feedback includes intonation, nuance, and emphasis, which convey more information to students. Therefore, audio feedback has the potential to provide high-quality feedback to students. More importantly, audio feedback enables teachers to show care and support while their own voice. So the resulting ethos of care may lead students to actively engage with the feedback, turning teachers and students into partners in the feedback process, thus leading to a constructive learning-related dialogues between them. In spite of the potential values of audio feedback, there exists inconsistency in the findings regarding the impacts of audio feedback and the students' preferences. So the inconsistency of these findings implies that audio feedback has its technological drawbacks. For example, students have reported difficulties in downloading large audio files, technological incapability in playing files, and relocating specific sections of long audio files, actually, just mentioned by Gemma. In addition, technology alone cannot guarantee the effectiveness of audio feedback on learning. There may be general influencing factors regardless of the feedback medium used. So I will present the influencing factors other than technology in my finding part. So what is our project design? So I'd like to introduce the background to you. So this study was investigated in a General Education Foundation course. It's a compulsory 3 credit point course for all freshmen in our university. So the course aimed to improve students' critical thinking about a wide range of issues. So the students were required to do group projects to explore one of the topics covered in the course and present their findings at the end of the course. The group project accounted for 20% of the final course grade. 2 teachers in the G Foundation course were approached based on their willingness of using audio feedback in their students' group projects. Accordingly, their students were invited to participate in this study. 71 undergraduates from 4 tutorial groups, 2 groups per teacher, consented to use audio feedback in their group projects. So the participants were aged 18 to 23 years and in the majors of Bachelor in Education. So this is the procedure. The teacher's audio feedback was implemented during 3 stages of the student's project development, namely when deciding on the inquiry questions, writing the inquiry proposals, and making the PPT slides for the presentation. So the students were required to submit their group work at each step on Google Drive. After the teacher received the students' work, they used the talk and comments function in the Google Chrome to insert audio comments into the students' Google documents and slides. The students then responded to their teacher's feedback and revised their work accordingly. To do this, the teachers and students first needed to install the talk and comment widget from the Chrome browser on their own devices, recorded the comments in a verb link format, and paste them by clicking the comment button. So we use multiple qualitative methods to collect the data. First, the students were invited to write retrospective journals to reflect on their experiences with the audio feedback received during their group projects and the impacts of audio feedback on the project-based learning. Second, post-journal interviews were conducted to the volunteers to gain an in-depth understanding of the factors influencing the effects of audio feedback on project-based learning. The 2 teachers also attended individual semi-structured interviews at the end of the course to share their observation on how much audio feedback affected their students' project-based learning and the potential influencing factors. So we used the summative analysis to analyze the collected data. So what we found. Good news. So this figure lists the effects of audio feedback and the frequency with which each effect was reported by the students. But these numbers have no statistical meaning. 74% of students reported feeling more engaged in their group projects than in the past and spending more time and energy on it due to their teachers' continuous feedback and support. And 65% of students reported that audio feedback enhanced their critical thinking dispositions. 82% of students agreed that quality of their final group presentation had improved through heeding the audio feedback to make revisions throughout their projects. So we can refer to some qualitative data to demonstrate the impacts of audio feedback on students' project-based learning. The first, learning engagement. For example, the students said, I think my engagement in this project work was greater than in the projects I have done for other courses. And the students had strong emotional engagement when they had a feeling of connection with the classmates and teacher via audio feedback. Also, the students had a tendency to think of the issues from different angles and ask themselves more what-if questions. So this is the evidence to demonstrate the effects of audio feedback on students' critical thinking dispositions. Both teachers and students reflected on the quality of the projects and found that audio feedback increased the quality of inquiry and presentations. For example, students could have a deep investigation into the topics and supported their arguments with valid evidence and made their presentation eye-catching. But I think we found more important finding, that is the influencing factors. We found the 4 types of influencing factors in the audio feedback process. So these are technological factors, the features of audio feedback, communication between student and teacher on the received audio feedback, and students' learning motivation. So these factors either enhanced or weakened the effectiveness of audio feedback on the students' project-based learning. So we can see technology also has drawbacks which were revealed by the study, and also that the students' extrinsic motivation may inhibit their engagement with audio feedback. So I will talk about this later. So first, technological inference. So here I list out the affordances of audio feedback, like convenience, timeliness, rich information, and social presence. So the students believe that these factors, these affordances, facilitated their engagement with audio feedback. I think you are very familiar with these affordances. So here I would like to draw your attention to the asynchronous discussion enabled by technology. We got very interesting findings. So some of the students believe that asynchronous discussion gave them time to reflect on the teacher's comments and formulate further questions they wanted to ask in response, which led to high-quality communication. However, others did not share this view. They found that asynchronous discussion created a time gap so that the misunderstandings could not be resolved as quickly as with the face-to-face communication. So which in turn affected the power of audio feedback over learning. And also we found some students reported technical problems. These technical problems prevented them from retrieving the audio feedback. Recording quality was the major problem. Sometimes the recording value was too low, and they had to play the recording several times to understand it. Another problem was that it was not always straightforward to find a particular section of the teacher's feedback they wanted to focus on during their revision. Some students said they had to drag the sound check multiple times to find what they wanted to follow up. Factor 2 is about the features of audio feedback. So the students reported 2 prominent aspects of audio feedback that influenced their project-based learning. One was its feed-forward feature. So many students mentioned that the teachers provided possible directions for them to continue their projects. So this gave them a sense of safety and encouraged them to take risks in their project inquiry. And the other feature of audio feedback with its ongoing nature throughout the project. So most of students mentioned that receiving audio feedback at different stages of the project was very helpful. They could identify problems in their project as soon as possible and still had chance to fix them. And let's look at the communication factor. So this is a kind of dialogical feedback, right? Some of students reply to the audio feedback on the Google platform to discuss the comments they disagreed with or found difficult to follow. So the teachers observed that the students who replied to their comments immediately and discussed the revision with them online tended to perform better in the final group project presentation than those who seldom replied or consulted them further. And in addition to external dialogue with their teacher, some students reported their inner communication with the audio feedback before discussing it with the teacher. So this kind of internal dialogue appears to have made the subsequent dialogue with their teacher more effective for their project-based learning. So I think that this is a kind of feedback eliciting a behavior. The last major factor is about students' learning motivation. So the students' learning motivation was believed as an important factor in the audio feedback process. Some students who reported their interest in the group project tended to engage actively in the audio feedback process. Both teachers also mentioned that the influence of the audio feedback on the students' project-based learning varied according to students' learning motivation. So the students who were intrinsically motivated to learn actively communicated with them about the progress of their project, whereas those with the extrinsic learning motivation were less likely to follow up after receiving comments. Okay, now let's make a conclusion. So this study was conducted in authentic classrooms without an attempt to compare audio feedback with written feedback in terms of its effectiveness on learning. So our focus was the effects of audio feedback on a particular form of learning, that is project-based learning, and the factors influencing this process. So we think this hasn't been substantially explored. So the effects of audio feedback were generally reported to be positive, echoing the majority of literature in this area. More importantly, influencing factors were identified beyond the technology itself. So the general standards of good feedback practice should be considered if audio feedback is to achieve its full potential. So the findings of this study provide at least 3 tentative suggestions for practitioners. First, to overcome drawbacks of technology mentioned in this study, teachers may need to find a quiet place and use high-quality recording devices when providing audio feedback. Furthermore, teachers can annotate specific sections of the students' work with audio feedback, or add notes to identify the time notes for the strengths, weaknesses, and suggestions in the audio files. Second, educators need to think about how to enhance and continue the teacher-student dialogue after the audio feedback is given. And third, we need to help students develop a mindset of proactive recipients and encourage them to take direct responsibility for their projects and act on the audio feedback. So these are the references you may refer to. Thank you very much. So this is for my presentation. Your questions are welcome.
Thank you very much, Jane, for another very interesting presentation. So we can have some space for questions. Some of those were actually posted on the chat already during Gemma's presentation. Fiona, would you like to suggest which questions cover first? Otherwise, I can actually handle it myself.
There was Alice Shepherd had several questions. I don't know if Alice is still here, about how the audio feedback was. Sorry, I'm just trying to find it. She had several questions.
Hi. I don't know if you can hear me. I am. So hello. Yeah. Shall I just summarise? I just had questions for Gemma about, and I think she started to answer some at the end of the presentation. Was it just the audio feedback, the 3 minutes, or was it in-text comments and audio feedback? Was it use of a grading form or rubric and the audio feedback? Were there differences in practice there between different academics?
Yeah, so the school has agreed that it has to be completing the assessment rubrics, which we have done in the written feedback in the past, and the audio feedback. And in-text comments, if possible, no. That was the point of departure. However, even before the actual marking started, because of students with special needs, staff were told if it's absolutely necessary, complete in-text comments. What happened in reality? There were some program teams that had a significant amount of students with declared disabilities, like 30% of a particular course. So that particular team decided to use the audio feedback, put in the in-text comments, and complete the rubrics. We had a few members of staff that really were very resistant in the beginning to not doing in-text comments, that in the end they said, well, I actually found that it worked quite well, and they're happy to continue doing audio feedback. So to answer your question, the staff were giving a little bit of flexibility to what they do. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Gemma.
Thanks a lot. Perhaps we can also involve Jane in a discussion about inclusivity. There was some comments, of course, made by Alice about how can we ensure that we are inclusive if we decide to provide audio feedback. I would like to hear your views, Jane, and perhaps Gemma's as well. Jane, are you with us?
Yeah, shall I can start and then Jay can go. So as far as inclusivity, someone did put a comment, but I think what could be useful is if there could be a transcript of an audio feedback. We see it in Microsoft Teams now. We don't have it in Turnitin yet, but that could make life easier for everyone. And as far as students with other, visual related needs, I think Turnitin could do more.
So I think in our project, audio feedback actually were provided for several times, because in our university we have a tradition. When the students do their projects, we will provide consultation session, but this is one-off. But Google Drive, if the students can, present their work gradually, and the teachers can provide the audio feedback timely, and then, my participants actually reported that they have a very strong sense of being safe in this exploration. So Chinese students often need the teacher's guidance, so they have to make sure they go into the right direction. So I think this is quite useful for the students, but also it depends on the students' motivation. I think students' motivation really matters. If they take a very active roles and proactive in the feedback process, no matter which feedback you know, in written or in audio you provide to them, they will seriously consider, and also to think about how to integrate this feedback to make their learning better. But for the students, you know, who were extrinsically motivated, for example, in our study, you may notice that the project work just accounted for 20% grades of the final course grade. So they may not have, you know, great passion to revise their project because they think this is not worthwhile for their investment on the revision. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. There was an interesting testimonial by Lai, and they were discussing about the fact that some colleagues would resist using audio feedback because the lecturer will have to write down some notes and then make a summary of those notes and then convey a message by audio, which I think it tells a lot about you know, our training in providing effective feedback as well. I was wondering whether you had similar experience in the kind of evaluation you conducted. What was the stronger resistance? Was that in terms of technology or in terms of time?
The two of them. So some members of staff did actually say that, you know, you have to read and make notes, and but in actual fact, if you want to give some of the feedback in the template, you also have to make notes of what specifically students need to be looking at. So there were some interesting discussions about the fact that when you don't put in-text comments, it's much more difficult to put all that detail in the 3-minute audio feedback recording. And it was accepted in the end that, for example, for dissertations, it's difficult to comment on every chapter in 3 minutes. So we did accept that audio feedback might not be that appropriate potentially for certain types of assessments. But the fact that you take notes to give feedback to students is something that everyone does, whether it's going to be the written or whether it's going to be the audio, especially if you're doing the summative bit that talks about strengths, areas for improvement, and feeding forward. And at this stage, I would also like to answer another question and the comment that was there by, I think, Mark Bassett and Lai about the template. So the template was a live document. It started off as a half page, just with sort of a little script of introducing the module. This is the mark, blah, blah, blah. And then as staff kept on giving us, you know, feedback and questions, we kept on adding to the steps, the sequence, the procedures, etc. And then what needed to be read out, if you like, or copied and pasted, we use a color code so that the people that wanted to go straight to that, they went to that. And if anyone wants to see the template, I can send it to you. So if you find me on my university address, and
you're gonna find all your details on the landing page as well. Yeah. And Jane, do you have any final remarks about this this point? Jane, have you got any final remarks about this? I think we got a little bit of a delay. In the meantime, I would just like to thank everybody for your participation and to the presenter for this very interesting insights. There were a lot of interesting way to evaluate the process as well. I thought it was extremely interesting. If Jane has no chance to chip in, I'll suggest that we can conclude the session on time. If Mathew wants to add final remarks about the recordings, of course, he's most welcome to do so.
Sure. Yes, the recording will start probably tomorrow. I've also put up the slides so that people can find references should they want to. Gemma, if you have your template sitting on a website somewhere, I'll be happy to put a link to it on the recording page as well. Otherwise, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll see you all again on the 6th of July for our next session, which will be a summary of the e-assessment awards, looking at winners from formative, the prize for formative, the prize for summative, and the prize for most innovative. So thanks very much, and hopefully we'll see you back here in about a month's time.